A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. This is the Western Province Cricket Umpire Association hosting the Level 1 course. My name is Abdullah Steenkamp, and my co-presenter this evening will be Thomas Mukarosi. And we again have our special guest present this evening, our ICC International umpire, Langton Rosere. I'm kicking off this evening with laws 12, 13, and 14. Before I hand over to Tom, who will do 15, 16, and 17, and then we will go into our Q&A session. So the kick. Can you please put your microphones on mute? I can hear a bit of background noise. Thank you so much. So to kick off this evening, law number 12, and it covers start of play and the cessation of play. So the call of play, when do we call of play? Law tells us that the bowlers in umpire to call play at the start of the match and on the resumption of play after any interval or interruption. So let's use the test match as an example. On day one, our test match starts at 10 o'clock. 5 to 10, the umpires will walk out, the fielding side will walk out, the batters will walk out. Once everyone is ready, the bowler is about to bowl the first ball, the umpire at the bowler's end will then call play. Similarly, after lunch, before the first ball is bowled, umpire to call play as well as after any interruption. So that the call of play is to indicate the start of uh, play. Similarly, the call of time, and the call of time indicates the end of play or the end of the session. So law tells us that the bowlers in umpire needs to call time after the ball is dead, on the cessation of play before any interval or interruption, and at the conclusion of the game. So example, let's use lunch as an example. So our lunchtime in our test match is at 12 o'clock. So the last ball of the over is bowled. We look at our watch and we see it's exactly 12 o'clock. The umpire will then call over, time, and lunch. So as soon as you call time, the bails needs to be removed from both wickets. So in my example, when you call time at lunch, the bowler's in umpire needs to remove the bails at the bowler's in. Similarly, the striker's in umpire needs to make sure that he or she removes the bails at the striker's in, and then they can leave the field to go and enjoy lunch. So the starting of a new over, law tells us that you will always start a new over during the match unless an interval needs to be taken. So if the umpire, walking at normal pace, arrived at his or her position behind the stump at the bowler's end before the agreed time for the next interval or the close of play. So I'll use an example to illustrate this. Our lunchtime is at 12 o'clock. At 11:59, the over is completed. You look at your watch and you see it's 11:59. Can you call lunch? No, you cannot call lunch because playing condition tell us lunch is at 12 o'clock. So now you look at your watch, you see it's 11:59 and you call over. So now what law tell us, so you now at the bowler's end will now move towards your now new position at the striker's end. The striker's in umpire will now move towards his or her position at the bowler's end. So now law tell us then the striker's in umpire now needs to walk at his or her normal pace in getting into position at the bowler's end. So if walking at normal pace and he or she gets there before 12 o'clock, a new over will be started. If the umpire does not get behind the stumps at the bowler's end before 12 o'clock is reached, bowlers and umpire needs to call time and lunch. Again, walking at normal pace. If walking at normal pace, you get behind the stumps before 12 o'clock, you'll play another over. If not, you will call time and lunch. The completion of an over, other than at the end of the game, at the end of the match, over always needs to be completed. But other than that, if the agreed time for the interval is reached during the over, you need to complete the over. There is an exception, and we'll get to it now. So our lunchtime at 12 o'clock, and let's say you've reached 12 o'clock, you look at your watch, you see it's 12 o'clock, but you've only bowled 2 balls in the over. Do you now take lunch after the 2 balls? No, law tells us you will not take lunch. You will first complete the over. You'll bowl the 4 balls, and then you will take lunch. So if the over, let's say, finishes at 12:04, you at the end of the over, once the ball is dead, you will call over, time, and lunch, and your lunch time will be for 40 minutes from 12:04 until 12:44 when the first ball needs to be bowled. There is an exception. What is that exception? And this exception is highlighted in green. So there is a question in the exam on point number 2. So the exception is when less than 3 minutes remains before the agreed time for the interval. The interval shall be taken immediately if either a batter is dismissed, or the batter retires, or the player needs to leave the field. Whether this happens in the middle of an over, doesn't matter. You need to leave the field. I'll use an example to illustrate this. Our lunchtime is at 12 o'clock. At 11:58, the third ball of the over, the bowler, the batter hits the ball and it gets taken by first slip. Now a wicket fell on the third ball of the over at 11:58. So what do you do now? Law now tell us, because this is now less than 3 minutes to go before the agreed time for lunch, which is 12 o'clock in our case, we will take the interval immediately. So our lunch interval will start at 11:58, and the first ball after lunch needs to be bowled at 12:38. But it must be less than 3 minutes before our agreed time for lunch. Let's say if the wicket falls at 11:56, can we take lunch? And let's say it's the third ball of the over. Wicket fell at 11:56. No, we cannot take lunch yet, because law tells us it needs to be less than 3 minutes. Only if it's less than 3 minutes, then you can take lunch. So in my last example, because the wicket fell at 11:56 after the third ball of the over, the new batter needs to come in and face the few deliveries and will play up until 12 o'clock. There is a concept in modern cricket called the last hour of the match, and a certain number, as per the laws, a certain number of overs needs to be bowled in the last hour. In our level 2, in our level 3 course, we will go into much more detail about what is this last hour and exactly how it works and how the law treats it. But for now, for the purpose of this course, I just want to make you aware that there is this concept in the game called the last hour of the match. And I'll use an example, like in our test match. The last hour only happens on the last day of the test match. So on day number 5, the last hour is, and let's say our playing times, we start at 10 and our cessation time is at 5 o'clock. So the last hour of our test match will be from 4 o'clock until 5 o'clock. That is our last hour of the match, and law tells us that a minimum of 20 overs must be bowled in this last hour. So from 4 o'clock till 5 o'clock, you need to bowl a minimum of 20 overs in the last hour. Again, I'll just explain the concept. We will go into much more detail in level 2 and level 3. So when is a match concluded? We will cover the result later this evening. But law tells us, as soon as a result is reached, as soon as, let's say, the winning run is scored, side B needs 250 to win the game. They then get 250. So as soon as they score the winning runs, the match is then concluded. The match is also concluded as soon as both the minimum number of overs for the last hour is completed and the agreed time for close of play is reached. Then the game is also concluded. If there was an agreement to limit the innings to a amount of overs, to amount of time, we will cover innings in the next law. But in terms of when the game is concluded, if there was an agreement to limit the innings either to amount of time or to the amount of overs, once that agreement has been reached, then the match is also concluded. And lastly, if you haven't reached anything in point 1, 2, or 3, then if players needs to leave the field due to adverse conditions of ground weather or light, and there's no further play possible, also the match is concluded. As an example of this, our 5-day test match, side B needs to score 300 to win. Well, we've now reached, let's say, 5 o'clock on day 5. Side B is 100 for the loss of 2 wickets. So they haven't reached the winning target, nor did the fielding side take all 10 wickets. And because of rain, let's say it starts to rain and the play cannot continue, and we've reached now our cut-off time of 5 o'clock, the game is then also concluded. When it comes to innings, we're covering more day cricket in this course. So in our test match, that consists of 2 innings, but a match can also consist of 1 innings. Doesn't have to be 2 innings, but most of more-day cricket, the games do consist of 2 innings for each side. So the law allows for the game to be either a 1 innings or a 2 innings aside match. It may be agreed to limit any innings to a number of overs or a period of time. So the law allows that you can either decide in your first innings to play, let's say, 50 overs aside. So side A will bat 50 overs in their first innings. Side B will bat 50 overs in their first innings. You can put a similar arrangement in place for the second innings. Let's say side A, second innings, you can only face a maximum of 60 overs in your first innings. But the important thing is, if you do decide to put such limitations on the innings to a number of overs or a period of time, these agreements shall apply to either the first innings or the second innings or both. Doesn't matter. So if you put a restriction on the first innings of 50 overs per side, then side A will bat 50 overs in their first innings, side B will bat 50 overs in their first innings. If you put a time restriction to it, let's say you're only allowed to bat 3 hours in your first innings, then side A can only bat a maximum of 3 hours in their first innings, and side B also can only bat a maximum of 3 hours in their first innings. But in test match cricket, there are no such agreements, so you can bat as long as you want in your first or your second innings. You'll find these agreements, especially in club cricket, where you don't have much time. The playing conditions do have these type of agreements in place. Law also tell us that teams needs to alternate the innings. Captain cannot tell you, let me bat my first and second innings in one go, and then you bat your first innings and second innings in one go. No. Law tells us you need to alternate your innings. So side A will bat their first innings, then side B their first innings, then side A their second innings, and then side B their second innings. There are exceptions, and we will get to that in later laws this evening. The follow-on is one exception, and forfeiture of an innings is the other exception. Except for those two, you need to alternate the innings of each side. So what is seen in the law as a completed innings? So law tells us a side's innings is considered to be completed if a side is all out. If you take 10 wickets, side is all out, innings of that particular side is completed. An innings is also completed if at the fall of a wicket or the retirement of a batter, there are balls still remaining to be bowled, but there's no further batter available to come in. If that is the case, innings also completed. Innings also completed if a captain declares the innings closed. And we will get to the declaration later this evening. If a captain forfeits the innings, also an example of when an innings is completed. In the previous slide, we spoke about the law allows you to prescribe a number of overs to a particular innings, whether it's the first innings or the second innings or both. Also prescribing a time to the first or second innings or both. So if the prescribed numbers of overs have been bowled or the time has been reached, innings also completed. So these are 5 instances where a side innings is completed. When it comes to the toss, law guides us. Law tells us who needs to be present. Law tells us where it needs to take place. Law also tells us the timings that the toss needs to take place in. So let's first start who needs to be present at the toss. Firstly, the captains needs to be present at the toss. And at least one umpire. Preferably both umpires needs to be there, but captains and at least one umpire to be present at the toss. So now we know who needs to be there. Where does it the toss needs to take place? Law tells us on the field of play. That's where the toss needs to be placed. Yes, I know it's custom. I know it's tradition that the toss takes place next to the match pitch or on the square. That is custom. That's custom. But law just tell us as long as it happens on the field of play, anywhere on the field of play, you can toss there. But you've seen many times on TV, it usually happens right next to the match pitch. So now we know who needs to be present. We now know where the toss needs to take place. Now let's look at the timings for the toss. So there is a window period that the toss must take place. And that window period is not earlier than 30 minutes, nor later than 50 minutes before play is about to start. I'll use an example to illustrate this. Our test match starts at 10 o'clock. So the window period for the toss to take place is between 9:30 and 9:44. So you can toss at 9:30, you can toss at 9:31, 9:35, you can toss at 9:40. So 9:30 is the earliest that you can toss, and 9:45 is the latest you can toss. Usually in many games, test match cricket, provincial cricket, we usually the toss takes place at 9:30. But there is this window period of 15 minutes for the toss to take place. And now the toss is completed. So law again tells us whichever captain wins the toss needs to notify the opposing captain of the decision either to bat or to bowl. And once that decision is made, that decision is final and then cannot be changed afterwards. So once a toss is made, let's say Captain A wins the toss. Captain needs to inform his or her opposing captain immediately. Captain cannot tell you, umpire, just wait. I quickly want to go have a chat with my coach or my team. I'll get back to you. No, captain needs to tell you immediately of the decision. And once the decision has been made, it cannot be changed. The last law that I'm covering this evening before I'm handing over to Tom is the follow-on law. So there is a concept in modern cricket in a 2 innings match where one side have the option of asking the other side to follow on their innings. So meaning side A went into bat, side B then went into bat, side B got dismissed quickly. Side A, the captain of side A then have the option of asking the captain of side B to go bat again. But there are certain conditions that needs to be met before the captain can exercise this option. So what is this? What is the conditions to enforce the follow-on? So in a 2 innings match of 5 days or more, and test matches spans over 5 days. These days, you don't get modern cricket of more than 5 days, but about 50, 60, 70 years ago, they definitely played test match cricket in over more than 5 days. But these days, it's only 5 days. But if the game consists of 5 days or more, like our test match, side batting first needs to lead by at least 200 runs to have the option of asking the other side to follow on. Lead needs to be at least 200 runs. I'll use an example to illustrate what point number 1 is trying to say. So side A in our test match. Side A goes into bat and scores 600 all out. Now side B goes into bat. And side A dismisses side B for 350 runs. So now the question is, and what does the law tell us? If the side batting first lead by at least 200 runs after both first innings were completed, the captain of side A has the option to either enforce the follow on or not. So in a 5-day test match, the lead needs to be at least 200 runs. So in my example, with side A scoring 600, side B getting dismissed for 350. So what is the lead that side A has on the first innings? Is 250. So does the captain have the option to enforce the follow on? Yes. All the law tell us that lead needs to be at least 200 runs. So because the lead is 250, the captain of side A has the option to enforce the follow on. Doesn't have to take it, but has the option to enforce the follow on. Just another example to illustrate this. Side A scores 600 runs. Side B gets dismissed for 450. Can the captain of side A enforce the follow on? What do we need to check? We need to check what the lead is. So 600 side A, 450 side B. The lead is only 150 runs. So in our test match, because the lead needs to be at least 200 runs, the captain of side A does not have the option to enforce the follow on. So not all games are over 5 days. There are games that are of shorter duration, like in South Africa. Provincial cricket spans over 4 days. I know there are some competition that spans over 3 days. There are some competitions that plays more day cricket over 2 days. And I do know of certain competitions where they play 2 innings aside in a single day. So what are the follow-on targets for games of 3 or 4 days, 2 day or 1 day? If it's a 3 or 4 day game, the lead needs to be at least 150 runs for the captain to enforce the follow-on. In a 2 day match, the lead needs to be at least 100 runs. And in a 1 day match, the lead needs to be at least 75 runs. Same principle applies as I've explained in our test match. So in a provincial game, let's say in South Africa, that spans over 4 days, side A scores 400. They dismissed side B for 300. Can the captain of side A enforce the follow-on? No, the captain cannot. Why? Because the lead is only 100 runs. The minimum lead needs to be at least 150 for the captain to enforce the follow-on. Also, in terms of notification, once the opposing captain decides that UC wants to exercise the option of asking the other side to follow on, once this option is exercised and you've notified the umpires and the opposing captain, that decision then cannot be changed afterwards. Point 3. So what happens if the first days of play is lost? Not a single ball gets bowled on the first day of the game. And emphasis on it must be on the first day. No play needs to take place on the first day of our game. I'll use our test match as an example, which spans over 5 days. If not a single ball was bowled on day one of our test match. So it rained the whole of day one. And play only commenced for the first time in our test match at 10 o'clock on day 2. So now the law tells us if no play takes place on the first day of our test match, then in terms of the follow-on lead, you now need to take how many days remains in the match, and the number of days that's remaining, you now compare that to what the minimum lead should be for that particular day. So in our test match, 10 o'clock on day number 2. So now there are only 4 days now remaining in our test match. So in terms of the follow-on lead, what should the minimum lead be? If I can go back to my previous slide. So now in 4-day cricket, the minimum lead to enforce the follow-on is 150 runs. So in our test match, that's because the whole of day 1 was the rain out, play only started on day 2 with 4 days only remaining. And because of this, in terms of the follow-on target, the minimum lead should be 150 runs. But again, I want to emphasize, it's only when there's no play taking place on the first day. If, for example, let's say play in our test match, play starts on time, day 1, 10 o'clock. We've bowled, we play a full day, day 1. And then day 2 is the rain out. And day 3 is the rain out. We only start again on day number 4. So in terms of what the minimum lead is in our particular game, it remains 200 runs in our test match. Because yes, we did lose play. There was no play on day 2, no on day 3. We'll only get play on day 4 and 5. And yes, it is now technically a 3-day test match. But the law is quite clear when it tells us it needs to be the first day when no play takes place. If you do start your game on day 1, even once the umpires called play, on day one, once the game has started, the game has started. Even if it rains for 3 or 4 days after that non-stop, and play only takes place on day five, in terms of the minimum lead for our test match, it will remain at 200 runs. Thank you so much. That is my portion of the laws this evening. I'm now handing over to Tom. Tom, over to you.
Thanks, Abdullah, and good evening to the candidates. This evening, I'm going to take you through laws 15, 16, and 17. And I'm going to start with law 15, declaration and forfeiture. For those of you who are not very acquainted to test match cricket, you might not know what a declaration or a forfeiture is. So let's start with a definition. A captain may declare his or her team's innings closed at any point when the ball is dead, and we will come to law 20, dead ball, next week. But just know that at any point when the ball is dead, a captain may say that my team has scored enough runs and I wish to end that batting innings immediately. Abdullah spoke about a team scoring 600 runs in the first innings. That is a lot of runs in any mode of cricket. And so because there is the time factor in test match cricket, whenever there's inclement weather around, captains do often declare their innings if they are in a strong position. So that would mean that that is the end of that particular innings and the next team will come on to bat. As I mentioned, the captain of the side batting may declare an innings closed whenever the ball is dead during that batting innings. What about a forfeiture of an innings? Let's see what the law says. A captain may forfeit either of his or her side's innings at any time before the commencement of that innings. A forfeited innings shall be considered to be a completed innings. So a forfeited innings is an innings that does not happen. So let's go back to the example by Abdullah where team A scored 600 runs and then team B scored 350 runs. And then instead of enforcing the follow-on, for whatever reason, team A decided to forfeit their second innings, so they do not bat at all in their second innings. And then team B would bat almost immediately after they have completed their innings. Why? Because team A has forfeited their innings. We do have an example of a match that had forfeited innings, the only test match cricket in history. Sorry, the only test match in the history of test match cricket to have a forfeited innings. And we will talk through that as an example. Quite importantly, a captain shall notify the opposing captain and the umpires of his or her decision to declare or forfeit an innings. And once notified, that decision cannot be changed or reversed. So let's have a look at an example of a forfeited innings. There were, in fact, two in this infamous test match, South Africa against England in Centurion, January 2000. South Africa had already won the series 2-0 before the start of this fifth and final test. And on day one, they batted first and were at 155 for 6 after 45 overs. The next 3 days were completely washed out. And before the game started on day 5, the then captain of South Africa, Hansi Cronje offered his English counterpart Nasser Hussain a one innings duel. How did they do this? Well, they said South Africa will bat on in their first innings until they get to a challenging score, and then England would forfeit their first innings, and then South Africa would forfeit their second innings, and then England would chase down in their second innings South Africa's first innings total. So there are the scores at the bottom of the screen. South Africa declared their first innings closed at 248 for 8. And then England forfeited their first innings. South Africa forfeited their second innings. And then England came into bat to effectively chase 249 runs to win the match, which they did. They scored 251 for 8. And I remember that game finished with about 3 or 4 overs left in the day's play. And at the time, it was heralded as a great piece of sportsmanship by the South African captain, Hansi Cronje, for making a game out of what should have been a complete ball draw washout. However, it was later revealed that this match unfortunately was fixed, and as I'm sure you all know, Hansi Cronje was banned for life from cricket due to his dealings with match fixers over the years. So an unfortunate incident, and it has in fact been removed from the records of Test match cricket history, this particular match. But we do have it as an example of the only Test match that has had forfeited innings in it. Law 16 is the result. So what are the various results that a match can end in cricket? Let's see what the law says. Let's speak first about a win in a 2 innings match. And remember that the laws that we are going through mainly focus on 2 innings matches, similar to a test match. So how would a team win a test match? Well, the side which has scored a total of runs in excess of that scored in the 2 completed innings of the opposing side shall win the match. What's important here is that the innings of the losing side must both be completed. Okay, we will show a video later on about the difference between a draw and a tie. And we will see that in a draw, the innings of both teams are not completed. And that is why we have a draw and not a tie. But for a win, we need the winning side to have bowled out the losing side in both the innings, or of course, either or both of those innings of the losing team can be completed by declaration or forfeiture. What about a 1 innings match? Let's think of one-day internationals. The side which has scored in its 1 innings a total of runs in excess of that scored by the opposing side in its 1 completed innings shall win the match. Pretty straightforward. We watch most of our matches as limited overs matches, either T20s or 50 over matches, or even T10 nowadays, where each side bats once and the team with the most runs wins the match. Umpires can also award a match. a match shall be lost by a side which either concedes defeat or, in the opinion of the umpires, refuses to play. Now, this can be a very controversial decision to make as an umpire. Please be very careful. Look through and listen to all the reasons why a team might want to concede defeat or refuses to play before awarding the match to the other side. If an umpire considers that an action by any player or players might constitute a refusal by either side to play, then the umpires together shall ascertain the cause of the action. If they then decide together that its action does constitute a refusal to play by one side, they shall inform the captain of that side. And if the captain persists in that action, the umpires shall award the match to the non-defaulting side. We will be watching a video of a match, another controversial test match that ended up with the umpires awarding a test match. This is the video, and Abdullah, if there is no sound, please let me know, but I think there should be.
Over the last 140 years, more than 2,300 test matches have been played. Over 1,500 of these have ended in a result. Over 700 have been drawn, 2 have been tied, and only 1 has ended in a forfeit.
The thing I remember about the forfeit test is none of us had a clue what was going on, really.
According to law 16.3.2, a match shall be lost by a side which, in the opinion of the umpires, refuses to play. On August 20, 2006, this rule was invoked for the first time on an afternoon that swung wildly between high drama and farce. An hour before tea on the 4th day, at the end of the 56th over of England's second innings, umpires Darrell Hare and Billy Doctrove asked for a change of ball.
It was one of the reserve umpires came out with a new box of balls. It was clear they were changing the ball. No big deal there. But instead of asking the bowling side to choose the new one, he asked the batting side, and you think, oh, hello, interesting.
The umpires then awarded England 5 penalty runs, confirming that they had pulled Pakistan up for tampering with the ball. The trouble was there was no evidence, no jelly, no dirt, no sandpaper.
A lot of people that looked at that ball have different opinions. Some feel it was clearly tampered with, and some think it was more than just playable. It was a good-looking ball. Others think you can see some evidence of scratching, but none that suggests it's been done on purpose and by hand, or even by a foreign object. So very mixed views.
It was after the tea break, taken more than 15 overs, after the 5-run penalty, that things really escalated. The umpires walked out, the English batsmen walked out, the Pakistanis didn't.
They felt hugely wronged, you know, they weren't sure that whether they wanted to come out.
After waiting for 20 minutes, the umpires walked to the Pakistan dressing room, came back a few minutes later and took the bails off.
And the match is aborted or abandoned or cancelled or no, wrong, none of that. We hear the match has been awarded to England. Wow.
That wasn't the end of it either. After a protest lasting almost an hour, and following discussions with match referee Mike Proctor, Inzamam Al-Haq finally leads the Pakistan team out again. This time, though, the umpires stay put. They've made their decision, and they're sticking by it.
My view of that was that it was very inflexible. Mike Proctor was the match referee in a very difficult position. I think there should have been an instruction from on high, from the chief executive or chairman of ICC, that this is a unique situation because of the unproven circumstances. In a proven circumstance of a tampered ball and a side refusing to come out, fair enough, but this was unproven.
Several hours after the bails were taken off, the ICC and the English and Pakistan cricket boards confirm in a joint statement that the match had indeed been forfeited. The hits kept on coming. With no evidence to back up the accusation, the ICC dropped the ball tampering charges. But Inzamam was banned for 4 one-dayers for refusing to lead his team out. They also removed Hare from international duty, who in turn threatened to sue the ICC and the PCB for racial discrimination. 2 years later, the ICC overturned the result from a Pakistan loss to a draw. But the MCC refused to recognize this.
It was all incredibly nasty and another stain on the game. And there's never been any concrete proof that Pakistan were in the wrong anyway.
To date, this remains the only scorecard in history to state England awarded the match, opposition refused to play. In the end, though, there was only one real loser: cricket itself. If you liked what over the last 100 and
So my advice to you, ladies and gents, please do not award the game to the non-defaulting side, because there will be a hell of a repercussion to deal with. Find out all of the facts at hand and do make a call to the governing body of that particular match that you're involved in, if there is such an incident where a team refuses to play, before you award the match. So let's have a look at a tie or a draw. We'll first deal with a tie. The result of a match shall be a tie when all 4 innings or 2 innings in a 1 innings per match have been completed and the scores are equal. We know now that in the playing conditions for a lot of T20 competitions and now also the 50-over World Cup, that if a match ends in a tie, then there will be super overs played. Those are the playing conditions for international limited overs cricket. But the law says if the result of a match, the result of a match shall be a tie when all innings have been completed and the scores of both sides are equal. So what then is a draw? The result of a match shall be drawn when it is not determined in any of the ways stated previously. I did mention earlier that in a win, the winning team needed to have more runs than the losing team, and the losing team should have completed all of their innings. Okay, and Abdullah did go through the various ways of how a innings is completed. So now let's watch another controversial match. And I think Langton might have been at this game. Zimbabwe against England, a test match in Bulawayo in 1996, where England were batting last and they needed 13 runs off the last over of the test match to win the game. Let's see what happened.
Heath Streak will be the bowler. England will be smiling at the end of this over. They need 13 runs to win this match. Zimbabwe in no hurry. Campbell's going to make sure that every corner of this boundary is patrolled. Streak tonight.
One boundary, anything could happen.
Down the leg side. Perfectly legitimate today. One ball gone with no runs scored.
One-day cricket, it would be illegal. In Test cricket, it's quite legitimate. So they bowled very well, Heath Streak, and particularly Guy Whittle, I think, who came on. And the game was probably still in England's favour, but he used to have dragged it back and bowled very well.
Knight's got it out to long off. Darren Gough prepared to sacrifice his wicket, but he's got back for 2. Flower, the fielder, making sure there'd be no overthrow, allowed England back for 2. I think Zimbabwe will settle for that. That's what Knight's looking for. He's chipped it over his head for 6. Unbelievable. Nick Knight's got his streak away over mid-wicket for 6 runs. Now England are back in it. England now need 5 runs to win off 3 balls. The England supporters are going crazy.
5 or 3 balls. Does he leave everyone on the boundary, or does he bring someone in?
Nick Knight, the hero of the hour now. That 6 runs has made all the difference. Have a look at this.
If you keep firing it in the same area, the batsman will eventually be able to adjust, and that's what's happened here. Nick Knight, 92 not out now. 1 6, 5 4s. And that has changed everything. 5 runs now needed from 3 balls.
A lot of critics of one-day cricket, but that shot would never have been played in a Test match 15 years ago. Here's streak tonight. England require 5. It's wide outside the off stump. No signal from umpire Ian Robinson. England now requiring 5 off 2. How does Heath Streak feel?
That is required. Sorry, that is required.
Full toss. Knight can only get it away for 1. Gough will definitely come back for the 2nd run. He's made it with a dive. Streak can't take the ball cleanly. England scramble 2, 3 to win off the last ball. We've seen one-day finishes all over the world. We've never seen a Test match finish like this. Now, the batsmen are in conference. The big 3 for Zimbabwe in conference. Campbell has told the bowler what to do. He goes out onto the boundary edge. Andy Flower wishes Heath Streak good luck. Nick Knight takes a few deep breaths. England need 3 runs to win off the very last ball to win this Test match. Can Nick Knight conjure up another boundary? One feel it has to be a boundary now for England to win this match. Here comes Streak. Knight's down the track. He's got it out to deep cover. There's a man there. This too will bring the scores level. Andy Flower's got it. Darren Gough vainly goes for the 3rd runs. The scores are level, but the match is drawn. England finished tantalisingly. 1 run short. They couldn't get the final run. Nick Knight finishes on 96 not out. What a Test match day we've seen here in Bulawayo. England finish just 1 run short. Controversial tactics from Zimbabwe as they fire the ball wide either side of the wicket. I'm sure England would have done the same thing in their situation. This is Test match cricket, remember. Zimbabwe have fought all the way and out of the fire have salvaged a draw.
That was an absolutely amazing game of cricket. One of the most...
Right, so let's pause it at the scorecard. And if you add up the 2 teams' scores, they are equal. Why the match was not a tie is because England's 2nd innings, 204 for 6, was not a completed innings. It would have been a completed innings if it was 204 all out, and then it would have been a tie. But because not all innings were completed, even though the scores were even, the match result was a draw and not a tie. I hope that clears up the difference between a draw and a tie. And of course, draws will also happen if scores are not the same. We've just run out of time in a 5-day test match, and the side batting second has not reached the target, and the side fielding last has not been able to bowl out the side batting second in their second innings. Now, what happens on the winning hit of a match? Quite important this, because we need to relay the correct information to the scorers. If a boundary is scored before the batters have completed sufficient runs to win the match, the whole of the boundary allowance shall be credited to that side's total. And in that case of a hit by the bat, to the scorer's score. So let's give an example. So South Africa is playing against India, and in the last ball of a one-day international, South Africa need 3 runs to win, and bowler bowls a ball, and the batter is David Miller. David Miller hits one of his famous cover drives, and the ball goes to the boundary for 4 runs before they complete 3 singles running up and down. So the law tells us here that in that particular example, that 4 runs will be added to the total of South Africa, and 4 runs will be added to David Miller's individual score. Even though South Africa only needed 3 runs to win, because they did not complete 3 runs running before the ball crossed the boundary, then they will score the boundary 4 and it will count in its entirety. Let me give you another example. Let's use West Indies against India, and Shai Hope is batting for the West Indies, and he is on 97 runs, and the team West Indies need 1 run to win. Shai Hope hits one of his exquisite cover drives, and the batters set off for a run, and they complete the single before the ball crosses the boundary rope. What happens then? As soon as they complete that single, they have reached their target of 1 run to win, and that is the end of the game. And even though the ball goes on to cross the boundary, the umpire will not signal boundary 4. Why? Because the game ended as soon as the 2 batters made good their ground at the opposite creases and completed the single. So batters know this law very well. They always make sure that they get a boundary and don't complete the single if they need 4 runs to get to a half century or a century, and if the team only needs 1 run to get to the winning total. Let me just mute everybody before I continue. Please, if you can all mute yourselves, that would help everybody. Right. How do we, as commentators, state a result? If the side batting last wins the match without losing all of its wickets, the result shall be stated as a win by the number of wickets still then to fall. So England, in that test match that I've just shown you, needed 205 runs to win. So if they had got 205 for 6, then they would have been the winners of that match. And they would have won the match by 4 wickets. How do we get to 4 wickets? The total number of wickets for a side to be all out is 10. So law tells us that we should state the win by the number of wickets still then to fall. 10 minus the 6 wickets which had fallen is 4 wickets is the win by England. If the side fielding last wins the match, the result shall be stated as a win by runs. So if Zimbabwe had bowled out England in England's second innings for 200, remember England needed 205 runs to win. So when the fourth innings started, England were 204 runs behind Zimbabwe. So 204 minus 200, Zimbabwe, if they had dismissed England for 200 runs, they would have won the match by 4 runs. If the match is decided by one side conceding defeat or refusing to play, the result shall be stated as match conceded or match awarded, whichever the case might be. What happens if there are mistakes in scoring? Let's see what the law says, how we should deal with it. If after the players and umpires have left the field in the belief that the match has been concluded, and then the umpires discover that a mistake in scoring has occurred which affects the result, then they shall adopt the following procedure. If when the players leave the field, the side batting last has not completed its innings, and either the number of overs to be bowled in the last hour or in that innings has not been completed, and the agreed time for close of play or for the end of the innings has not been reached, then unless one side concedes defeat, the umpires shall order play to resume. So we shall tell the players to get back onto the field. We will have a strong word with the scorers afterwards for misinforming us, but the match shall be completed according to the correct scores if time, weather, and light allows. Unless the result is reached sooner, play will then continue until the prescribed number of overs has been completed and either time for close of play has been reached or the allotted time for the innings has expired. No account shall be taken of the time between going off and the resumption of play. So that time that they were off the field will not be counted as playing time when it comes to over rates or any time restrictions that the match might have. Once the umpires have agreed with the scorers the correctness of the score at the conclusion of the match, the result cannot thereafter be changed. In Western Province Cricket Umpires Association, we have match cards that both captains fill out at the end of the match. Their scorers will complete the match card, and then the captains will sign at the bottom of that match card, and that match card will include the scores of both teams, including the scores of each batter for each side. And in signing the card, the captains are confirming that they are happy with the result and it can no longer be changed. Last law that we are presenting for this evening is Law 17, the over. What is an over? I'm sure you all know. An over is 6 legal deliveries bowled ball shall be bowled from each end alternately in overs of 6 balls. What does each end alternately means? If I go back to Newlands cricket ground and Abdullah and I are umpiring a match, we mentioned last week that one of us will stand at the south end, which is called the Weinberg end, and the other one will stand at the north end, which is called the Calvin Grove end here at Newlands cricket ground. And the opening bowler will choose which side he or she wants to bowl from, and that bowler will bowl 6 legal deliveries, and that umpire who is at the bowler's end at the end of that over after the 6th legal delivery will call over, and then the next over will be bowled by a different bowler from the other end, and 6 legal deliveries will constitute the second over bowled in the day, and so the match continues. How and when does an over start? It is in lime green, so you know it's coming up in the exam. An over has started when the bowler starts his or her run-up. If he or she does not have a run-up, then the over shall start when his or her bowling action for the first delivery begins. What is the bowling action? It is when the back foot of the bowler lands, usually around the bowling crease. When are balls considered valid to count as one in the over, and when are they not? A ball delivered by the bowler shall not count as a valid delivery if it is called dead or is to be considered dead before the striker has had an opportunity to play it. And we will get into more examples in Law 20, which is dead ball. If it is called dead in the circumstances of Law 20.4.2.5, when the striker is not ready for the delivery of the ball, even if the ball is delivered, as long as the striker does not attempt to play at the ball, if he or she steps away from his or her batting position, then the umpire will call and signal dead ball, and that ball will not count as a valid delivery in the over. Similarly, if a striker is distracted while receiving a delivery, he or she is entitled to pull away from his or her normal batting position. And if he or she does not play at the delivery, the umpire shall call and signal dead ball, and that ball will not count as a legal delivery in the over. It shall have to be re-bowled. If a ball is a no ball or a wide, we are going to cover those 2 laws in Law 21 and 22. It shall also not be considered a valid ball of the 6 in the over. There are a few other incidents where the ball has been bowled, but because of misdemeanors by the fielding side, the ball shall not be classified as a valid delivery in the over and shall have to be re-bowled. When a player returns without permission and comes into contact with the ball while it is live, then that ball will immediately become dead. Most players don't know this law, so umpires, it's a good idea for us to call and signal dead ball and then award 5 penalty runs to the batting side, and there's a full procedure for that. and that ball will not count as a legal delivery in that over. It will have to be rebowled. If there is an example of illegal fielding, which we will cover in Law 28, then that ball shall not count as a legal delivery. If there's a deliberate attempt to distract the striker before he or she has had an opportunity to play at the ball in Law 41.4, then that ball will also not count as a legal delivery. If there is a deliberate distraction, deception, or obstruction of a batter after the batter has received the delivery, again, that ball shall not count as a legal delivery in the over. It will have to be rebowled. If none of the items listed below apply, then the ball will be classified a legal delivery. Of course, quite importantly, if a ball is not bowled, then it is also not considered a valid delivery. Sometimes bowlers have problems with their run-ups, and when they get into their bowling action, they go through with the action but do not release the ball. We call and signal dead ball, and of course that ball will not count as a valid delivery in the over. And only valid balls shall count towards the 6 required to complete an over. When 6 valid balls have been bowled and when the ball becomes dead, very important, only after the ball becomes dead should an umpire call over, and then only can they leave their position from behind the bowler's end stumps and can walk towards square leg, where there will be strikers and umpire for the next over. What happens if an umpire miscounts? I'm afraid to say it happens to the best of us. Let's see what the law says in terms of how we deal with it. If the umpire miscounts the number of valid balls, the over as counted by the umpire shall stand. Wow, okay. So that means our mistakes are not to be corrected. Or are they? The law says that if, having miscounted, the umpire allows an over to continue after 6 valid balls have been bowled, he or she may subsequently call over as the ball becomes dead after any delivery, even if that delivery is not a valid ball. So let me give you an example to illustrate this point. Abdullah and I are standing in 42-degree heat in Paarl, and it is late in the day's play, and there was no water because there's a drought in Paarl, and we have stood the whole day under extreme conditions, and we have miscounted an over. So we've got to 6 valid deliveries, but we did not call over. And then a 7th delivery is bowled. However, that 7th delivery, the bowler oversteps and is a no ball. Our 3rd umpire, having picked up that this was now the 7th delivery of this over, calls us on the radio to inform us that, gents, that was actually the 7th delivery bowled in this over. Please call over. Then we say to him, but we can't call over because the bowler has just bowled a no ball. It needs to be rebowled. No. The 3rd umpire will tell us that even if the extra ball bowled was not a legal delivery and under normal circumstances would have to be rebowled, because we have already bowled 6 valid deliveries and have now been made aware of that fact, then we have to call over. Okay, do yourselves a favor as a team. Try as far as possible not to miscount. We help each other from bowler's end to striker's end umpire and vice versa to keep count. It seems very simple to count to 6, and it is. Most of the time when we miscount, it's because something happened in the over to make it more than 6 balls bowled or a wicket fell. So what we do is we always reconfirm the number of balls remaining in the over if a wicket fell, or if there was a no ball in the over, or if there was a wide in the over, if there was a dead ball in the over, and especially if the ball does not count as a legal delivery and needs to be rebowled. So then we need to confirm how many balls remain in the over. And the way we do that is we've got non-verbal signals for 6 balls remaining in the over. So if the first ball of the over was a no ball, then we show each other a fist. That's 6 balls remaining in the over. For 5 balls remaining in the over, we merely show 5. For 4 balls remaining in the over, we also just show the number 4. I like to put my 4 against my shirt so that it's easy to see for my partner. The 5 out here is also easy to see for my partner. 3 balls left is halfway through the over. So we simply show that signal. Okay, that's halfway. 2 balls left is up here. And 1 ball left, you can show as well. I will let my partner know if it's a limited overs match that I will be writing in my bowling card when there is 1 ball left. That is me at the striker's end. If I'm at the bowler's end, I do not write in my bowling card when there's 1 ball left. I write in my bowling card when I'm walking to square leg after my over at the bowler's end, walking towards the striker's end. So if I'm at bowler's end and I do want to show 1, then that is my 1 that I would show. Okay, confirm your signals with your partner before every match, especially if you are standing with somebody for the first time. Some umpires only show 2 in the over. Other umpires only show 1. Here at Western Province Cricket Umpires Association, we like our umpires to show 3, 2, and 1 so that we make sure that they do not miscount. As mentioned, please confirm that with your partner before the game. Can a bowler change ends? What does changing ends mean? Remember, I told you that the opening bowler will bowl from the south end and then the other opening bowler will bowl from the north end, and they will alternate over after over. Can bowler number 1 bowl over number 2? So bowl consecutive overs, 1 from the south end and the next one from the north end. Let's see what the law says. A bowler shall be allowed to change ends as often as desired, provided that he or she does not bowl 2 overs consecutively, nor bowl parts of each of 2 consecutive overs in the same innings. So that means that a bowler cannot bowl the first over of the match and then go to the other end and bowl the second over of the match. So no two consecutive overs may be bowled by the same bowler. There is an exception to this. If, for example, South Africa is playing against Australia and Dale Steyn bowls the last over of the first innings and bowls Australia out, and then South Africa has a lead of more than 200 in the first innings, so they force Australia to follow on. Dale Steyn can bowl the first over of the Australia's second innings. So that would mean he has bowled, or he will bowl, 2 consecutive overs in the match. But the restriction, as you can see here, is you cannot bowl 2 consecutive overs in the same innings. When does an over finish? Other than at the end of an innings, a bowler shall finish an over in progress unless he or she is incapacitated or suspended under any of the laws. If for any reason other than at the end of an innings, an over is left uncompleted at the start of an interval or interruption, it shall be completed on resumption of play. So if we have a rain interruption halfway through and over, when that rain break is over, the same bowler will complete that over after the rain break. So what happens if a bowler gets injured or suspended during an over? Let's see what the law says. If for any reason a bowler is incapacitated while running up to deliver the first ball of an over, or is injured during an over, the umpire shall call and signal dead ball. And if that incapacitated or suspended bowler, or if a bowler is incapacitated or suspended during an over, another bowler shall complete the over from the same end, provided that that replacement bowler does not bowl 2 overs consecutively. So that means that he or she would not have bowled any part of the previous over and cannot bowl any part of the next over. Right, that is the over completed, and that is all the laws that we are going to go through today. I want to take us back for the start of our question and answer session. I'm going to bring in our poster boy, international umpire Langton Rusere from Zimbabwe. He's going to take us through an incident that occurred in the Indian Premier League playoff match between Chennai Super Kings and Gujarat Titans, where Mahendra Singh Dhoni had a 4-minute conversation with the umpires during a match. Let us set the scene first by commentary from the gentleman in a lime green shirt. Doesn't mean that he will be in the exam. It just means he's a very fashionable character.
MS Dhoni, genius, master, captaincy goat, but gamesmanship and a very cunning ploy. Well, Chennai Super Kings may have reached the final for yet another time in the IPL, but in the first qualifier that was there against the Gujarat Titans, during the 16th over of Gujarat Titans' chase, there was one particular incident that became a major talking point. Not much was deliberated about this because, yes, everybody was swept away by MS Dhoni playing for the last time this season at Chepauk. The emotions were high. There was also a lot of happiness because Chennai Super Kings reached the final for the 10th time. However, this particular argument that MS Dhoni had with the umpires over a particular rule, which not many of them had known, was indeed the major talking point. A lot of the commentators, a lot of the analysts just said that MS Dhoni's ploy just did not make sense. Because at one point in time, you also had to ensure that you had an overrate penalty as well. Now, that is the reason why in this video, I will tell you what was the rule all about and why did MS Dhoni have an argument with the umpires about it. So you all saw that when the 16th over was about to be bowled, MS Dhoni stalled play. And it was about Matisha Patirana. Patirana had left the field for 9 minutes and he had come to bowl and he was getting ready to mark his run-up and charge him. But then the...
Excuse me, there's no video.
Apologies for that.
Umpires realized something and then they had to stop play and consult MS Dhoni about it. Now that consultation took a lot of time because what happened after that? Patirana was off the field for 9 minutes. Now when he had come to bowl, umpires realized that Patirana had 4 minutes left on the clock before he could bowl. He had 4 minutes left because the rules stipulate in very simple terms that if the player is off for 8 minutes or more, he cannot indulge in any kind of batting or bowling activity for that stipulated period of time. But then MS Dhoni argued. He stalled the play. He was engaging in the conversation with the umpires. And Dhoni and the CSK side gathered around the umpires to dispute the decisions. But call it coincidence or call it a divine act of providence. By the time the conversation ended, the 4 minutes that was there, the 4 remaining minutes that were there, that lapsed. So Patirana was eligible to bowl again. This conversation and the time-wasting tactics has really not gone down well with some sections of the public because would you want to stall time and also have an overrate penalty at the same point in time? This is a major, major issue.
Right, so this is where I bring in Langton Ruseri. They, as a panel of international umpires, discussed this incident, and there was a question mark as to whether the umpires could have awarded the match to the Gujarat Titans for Dhoni refusal to play, because the argument went on unnecessarily long, and maybe they knew that he was trying to waste time to have his bowler be eligible to bowl again. Maybe they didn't. Langton, are you there? Can you take us through some of the learnings of this particular incident?
Hi, Tom. How are you doing? Good evening, everyone.
Well,
so during the qualifiers, we spoke about this particular incident, and it helped that the person who was fourth umpire in this game, Madana Gopal Jayaraman, was at the qualifiers. So what we spoke about was what would have happened if the umpires had gone back to position and Dhoni hadn't. And that's where a refusal to play would have come in, because he would have stood his ground when the umpires had told him this bowler cannot bowl, and him not being ready to play would have A, resulted in penalty runs for wasting time, and B, could have gone further to be seen as a refusal to play. And as we spoke off air earlier, we spoke about how smart Dhoni was, because he went to the umpires and said, we are not refusing to play, to get 16.3 out of the way, which is refusal to play, umpires awarding a match. So he covered himself by making sure that he made the umpires know that he was not refusing to play. And something that you spoke about earlier, Tom, was that we should never find ourselves, or try not to find ourselves, in a case where we are awarding a match. We have to exhaust every possible avenue to make sure that the game is played, which in this case is what the umpires try to do. What was wrong, though, about what the umpires did was, one, they engaged Dhoni in an argument for the 4 minutes. Two, they didn't stand their ground to make sure that he wasn't wasting time, because they all knew what he was trying to do. He was trying to engage the umpires in a conversation until those 4 minutes lapsed and Patirana could bowl, which, as match officials, we should try not to do too much of. So something that we then spoke about when we had our session was that, sure, we should understand preventative umpiring and not be hasty to sanction players, but we should also make sure that we allow cricket to win, which in this case Dhoni didn't. And what was then resolved, what was then agreed upon by international umpires, is once an umpire or umpires feel that a captain is trying to waste time and make it work to their advantage, they will immediately penalize the fielding side by awarding 5 penalty runs. We won't go as far as awarding a match, because that is very, very controversial, and we probably don't want to get to that point. So when we can't reason with a captain, we go back to our positions, and if they're not ready, we give them a warning for time wasting. And if they still persist and insist on not playing, then we award penalty runs. And I hope that answers that bit.
Awesome, Langton. Thanks so much for that first-hand experience. Even though you were not there yourself, you were able to get it from the fourth umpire in that particular incident.
Yeah.
Abdullah, I think you've also got a question for Langton this evening before we go into our Q&A for the rest of the candidates. You're still on mute, Abdullah.
Rookie Era, good evening, Langton. How are you?
Hi, Abdullah. How are you doing?
No, good, thanks. Always a pleasure having you in our sessions. Would love to see you in every single session going forward. And not just this course, many others to come as well, please, Langton.
I'm learning a lot, Abdullah, and I would want to be part of any conversations that you guys have. So I would love to be part of any courses that you guys do.
Yeah, the Langton, the learnings goes both ways, so we definitely learning from you as well. Yeah, so my question is just related to tonight's lecture. Just to again emphasize to the attendees how the follow-on target works, how the minimum lead works, just to give them a better understanding how it works. So, so my question is, in the example of side A scoring 600 and side B in their first innings getting dismissed for 400 in a test match. Can you just explain to the listeners, can the captain of side A enforce the follow-on, and why not? Test match, 600 first innings, dismiss side B for 400.
Right. So when you address that part, I hope everyone understood what you were talking about. When you say the lead of 200 or more, you can enforce a follow-on. And 3 or 4 day cricket, a lead of 150 or more, you can enforce a follow-on. So whatever score that the team batting first gets, the team batting second, if they are 200 runs off that or more, then the team that bowled first, well, the team that bowled in the previous innings, which is the team that bowled second, can enforce a follow-on. But they need to let the umpires know that we're enforcing a follow-on at any point during the break, so as to make sure that the other team is also ready. Because as the two of you would know, you get, unless it's during a break, lunch, tea, or any of that, you get 10 minutes to start the next innings. So within those 10 minutes, they should notify the opposition so that if they want the pitch rolled, they'll inform the umpires and make sure that the pitch is rolled for them, and on and on.
Great stuff. Thanks, Langton.
Thank you so much, Langton. Over to you, Tom.
Right, we've got a few hands up in the meeting room. Mohammed, you've once again had your hand up for about an hour. I hope your hand is not getting too sore being up for so long. Please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Langton. I have two questions here. May I? I know you have other students, but as you mentioned, an example with Shea Hope, I don't know if Mr. Langton could, or anyone who very knowledgeable more than us, to give me an explanation in this. Tom Smith, according to TS 141, it's saying winning hit or extras. What you explain is very appreciative and something I learned. I mean, relearn the class. However, I make it small, very short. I recall you says Shea Hope hit that single and the ball go to the boundary, disallow the boundary. But that's technically is 5 runs. But according to class purposes, you say 1 run win the game. However, the ball is dead when it reach the boundary. That's 2 questions there. Now, this is the main thing. This will cause complication and problem. The umpire call time. There is no more time for the end of the day's play. For instance, the plays get dark. So umpire call time, legitimate time. That's one. Secondly, the mistake in the scoring, what you said, I talked top of my head. And thirdly, what will be the result in this situation? And after that, I have one more question. Thank you, sir.
Wow, Mohammed, that was quite a lot happening there in your scenarios. And Abdullah,
no, it's
I'm
not my
sure.
scenario. What you mentioned, sir. So I'm talking about class purposes, because this scoring thing, current to TS Tom Smith, page 141. It's what you say is right, but umpire not allowed to tally scores. So what will be the result? Like I said, there is no more time. Umpire card the legitimate time. Please, get dark. Then you cannot. Law teaches us umpire order play to resume. So what will be the result of that match on that day? Thank you, sir.
I'm struggling to make out your question, Mohammed. Abdullah, are you able to make out the question?
So I made that 2 question, Tom.
Okay.
Over to you, Langton.
Thanks, Langton.
I also struggle to make it out, Tom. Over to you, Langton.
Right. The challenge with what Mohammed said is that he's taking a 1 innings match and a 2 innings match and combining them when the result is coming into play. So with the 1 innings match, which is what Tom spoke about when he said Shea Hope hits the ball, well, assuming it's a 1 innings match, hits the ball, it goes to the boundary, they cross and complete the 1 run, his score will be 97. So that's in a 1 innings match situation. Where you call time, it'll be in a 2 innings match scenario. Because in a 1 innings match scenario, time will be called when the innings ends or when the game ends, because you don't really need to call time in that instance. But if it doesn't end and there's a reason for people to leave the field, like bad light or rain or something, when you resume the innings as normal. But in a 2 innings match, the only time you will call time is, say, on day 5, and it's the last ball of the game, and you are thinking, for example, that the team batting second has won, and say it's 5 balls bowled, and then the scorers tell you, hang on, it wasn't game over when you came off, which then means the boundary counts, because that would then finish the game in this example. If they needed 2 runs to win and you gave them 1 when you thought, yeah, they need 1 run to win, the boundary will then count because they needed more than the run that they completed. And because the ball got to the boundary, the whole boundary allowance will count. Does that answer your question, Mohammed?
No, Mr. Lanton. What I'm saying
Yes.
is not very difficult. I mean, sorry to say. What I'm saying is that it's a one-day match. Shayub hit the ball, he crossed for 1, the ball goes to the boundary. When a ball is dead, when the ball crossed the boundary line. However, you have to listen to the question here. Mistake in scoring, that's 1. Law teaches us umpire call time, the place is dark, Mr. Lanton. You cannot go back again. The law teaches us
Yes.
umpire order play to resume. That's 2 questions. Now here will cause a problem. What is the result of the match?
In a 1 innings match, in a 50 over match in ODI, in a case like that where they can't go back on, you will go and duck with Lewis. That will then tell you who won the game.
Yeah, I understand.
Because
But the law teaches us, that's where the problem come in here. Umpire order play to resume. You cannot go back. You can't go back now. Play is dark.
that's,
I mean, light.
yes, when it's dark, because you wanted to go back on, but you can't go back on, the game is decided on DLS, which is where you find a result that says this team won by so many runs, DLS in bracket, because they couldn't go back on.
Okay, thank you. So DLS, Dr. Lewis system with the award
Yes.
who win or loss. Okay, thank you, Mr. Lanton.
Yes.
Okay, I'm glad we were finally able to answer your
Can
question.
I go back to my second question or someone else?
Can we give everybody else a chance first,
Sure,
Mohammed?
sure.
And maybe for ease of answering your questions, if you can type them into the chat box, it might be easier for us to read through them first and then be able to give you a clear answer first time around. Okay. Thank you. Next hand up from Canada, Rohan Weatherspoon. Please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours.
Good evening, gentlemen. Donkey.
Good evening, Mr. Weatherspoon. Always great to hear your voice, sir. Good evening to you.
Yeah, nice to see you as well. I have 3 little questions. Let's suppose a batsman hit the ball outside the ground into a gutter somewhere, and a spectator picks up the wrong ball, sends it back on the field to the bowler. The umpire did not check the ball, so they bowl an extra over. So after that over has been bowled, they realize that they had the wrong ball. What then would the umpire do?
Langton, you want to take that for us while you're on a roll?
So, right. If we go to law 5, we are told that the umpires can change the ball if they think that the ball has gone out of condition. If they don't think that the ball has gone out of condition or it's the wrong ball or whatever it is, then they play with the ball. If they realize, hang on, something's not quite right here, they can stop the game, get the right ball, then continue the game. But if they can't find the ball, well, that's unfortunate that things happen. But what happens when you replace a ball, you use that ball until it needs to be replaced again. You don't go, hang on, we've replaced the ball, then 2 balls into it, we go, no, the ball that we've replaced it with is not quite what we wanted it to be, or the players are complaining about it, then the ball that you wanted to use has been found, then you bring it back on. You will only replace it when the ball that you are using currently has either gone out of shape or you think it's not quite fit for play.
So the fact
Does that answer your question, Ron?
Yeah, the fact that 1 over was bowled with the wrong ball, how would we address that?
That is part of the game. It happens. We can't correct a mistake by making another mistake. We've already bowled the over. That's life.
Okay. My second question is, bowler bowls a ball and the batsman hits the ball. The ball splits in 2. One half goes to mid-off and the next half goes to the keeper. It's caught by mid-off and caught by the keeper. Is this a dead ball or is the batsman out?
I think we've had that in one of our exams, Abdullah. I can't remember what the answer is. I'm going to throw it to Langton. Please help us out.
Man, that is a difficult question. Right. Before I answer that question, I will talk about field technique with the ball incident first. What you want to do as an umpire is whenever a ball is hit out of the ground and it's hit to where you can't see the ball or you don't see what's happening with the ball, check the ball when you get it. Because it saves you a lot of trouble of having to replace a ball or having to then correct your mistakes by making these things that might be contentious with the players. Then to answer this question, if the ball is split, then you have to call dead ball because we only consider a ball to be a ball when it's in its entirety. And the law 2 talks about umpires being the sole judges of fair and unfair play. If you think it's fair, you carry on. If you don't think it's fair, which in my personal opinion, I don't think it's fair that the batter would be dismissed when half of the ball is in the keeper's hand and the other half is gone somewhere else. I would call dead ball, me personally, because I don't think it's fair.
Abdullah, you want to give your opinion on this one? Thanks, Langton. I agree with you.
Thanks, Langton. I agree with you.
Okay.
And my last question is, a batsman hits a ball, but while the bat made contact with the ball, the bat came out of his hand and the ball went to mid-off. The ball was caught at mid-off. The umpire is not sure whether the bat made contact after he lost grip or the batter made contact with the ball while the bat was in his hand. Now, how would you rule on a decision like that? I mean, you might have you could go to your third umpire, but let's suppose in a local game where we don't have our DRS or anything, how would we go about judging that?
Langton, the floor is yours. Langton, are you still with us, or are you having internet problems? Looks like Langton is having internet problems. So, Abdullah, I'm going to throw that one to you. With a bat coming out of a batter's hand, the ball potentially hitting the bat when it was out of the batter's hand, do we give the batter out caught or not?
Mr. Witherspoon, a non-televised game, you need to confer with your colleague after consultation. If the two of you are not sure that the ball made contact while the batter still had the bat in his or her hand, if there's any doubt, Mr. Witherspoon, you need to go not out. You need to be 100% sure that ball made contact with bat while bat still in the striker's hand. If the answer to that question while you're consulting is yes, you give the batter out caught. If the answer to that question is no, obviously, you'll give the batter out not out. If the answer to the question is you're not sure, I'm not 100% sure, there's doubt, you then go with not out.
Thank you very much. And my last little question, because we have had these incidents in like local cricket, is difficult to comprehend, but they do happen. I had one incident where, based on the law of a wide, it says a wide is if the bat makes no contact with the ball. But in one occasion, there's a wide where the batsman swing at the ball. The bat came out of his hand and made contact with the ball. Now, is that a wide or is that not a wide?
Sure, Mr. Weatherspoon, these are very interesting scenarios you're throwing at us. Abdullah, I'm going to give that one to you as well, please.
Sorry, Abdullah.
No issue, Mr. Witherspoon. So, ball should not make contact with anything. So I wouldn't call it a wide. I'm thinking I wouldn't call it a wide. Ball has made contact with the bat. Well, if the ball went in the air and get caught by the fielder, obviously it wouldn't be out. But because ball made contact with bat, I wouldn't go wide.
So it doesn't matter even if the batsman wasn't holding it while it made contact with the ball.
Yes, that's my interpretation. I'm not sure if you have a different interpretation, Tom.
I agree with you, Abdullah. I think the bat, if it's not in the batter's hand, will still be considered as part of the batter's person. For example, a helmet could fly off the batter's head and the ball could hit the helmet. You certainly wouldn't call wide in that very unlikely scenario. So I would consider a bat that is not held in the hand as part of the batter's person. It's not a bat anymore, but it's part of the batter's person. So should not be called wide. I agree with Abdullah.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
And so do I. Sorry, I went off the call. I don't know what happened with my internet. So the only time the bat will not be, in my view, and the laws, I guess, the only time the bat will not be considered to be held is when you're talking about a catch and when you're talking about a run out. Otherwise, it is part of the batter's equipment. So if I throw the bat at the ball, I still score the runs because I've played a shot. But if the ball is not in the bat is not in my hands when it's hit and it's caught, I can't be out. And if the bat makes the ground and I'm not in my ground or holding the bat, then I'm out, run out, because the bat is not held.
Okay, so in your scenario, if it hits the ball, then it could count as runs, a boundary, regardless whether it's in the batsman.
The batter played a shot. Whether the shot was played with the ball in hand or not, if you look at the appendix, it talks about bat held when it's talking about a run out and a catch.
Okay.
So that's my interpretation of it.
Thank you very much.
Great stuff. Thank you, Mr. Witherspoon. And
don't take anything that I say is gospel truth, because I could be wrong.
We'll go with your call, Langton. We'll go with your call. Next hand up is Janine. Please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours.
Hi, guys. Hope you guys are well. Yeah, you guys just kind of confused me with Rowan's questions, because I think in the previous laws, excuse me, we said that anything that the batter holds, whether it nicks its glove or whatever, is being seen as part of a shot. But now when it comes to the bat leaving the hand, if runs are scored, then it counts. But if they caught or whatever, then it doesn't count. So why is it then a part of the batter, but not part of the batter when it's out? That's not my original question. I'm just a bit confused regarding that. My actual question that I want to ask is, how many times do you guys have per over? Because I know bowlers get, the team get fined or whatever. Like in the Women's World Cup, South Africa women were over behind, and they had to, I think for one over, had to bring all fielders into the 30 circle yard. Yeah, the 30-meter yard circle. So I don't know if that is another law that we're covering, or if it falls under the law of the over. I know we've been talking about MS Dhoni stalling for 4 minutes. Isn't that part of a time of what the over should be taking place? Are they running behind? Yeah, what is the thing regarding the time per over?
So Janine, I'll answer your first question, and then I think what we'll do is we'll come back to Rohan's scenarios once everybody else has asked their questions. Abdullah took us through an innings and also took us through intervals on the previous lecture. And the law is not strict about the length of an innings. However, they are determined and documented in the playing conditions for a specific tournament. So I think the women's T20 innings are limited to 75 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. If the last over is not started within the 75 minutes, then a fielder will have to be brought in at the start of that last over, or any over that starts after the cutoff time. So only one fielder, not all the fielders, have to come into the 30-yard circle. And in fact, in women's cricket, it's not 30 yards, it's 27 yards, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, every competition has its set of playing conditions, and the playing conditions will determine the length of an innings. In 50 over one-day international cricket, the length of an innings is 3.5 hours. So again, if the last over has not started after 3.5 hours, then at the start of the next over, then a fielder will have to be brought into the circle. That is a new playing condition for 50 over cricket. What the umpires need to take into account is any extenuating circumstances that are outside of the control of the fielding side. So if there's an injury or illness to any player and that player receives treatment on the field, then obviously those minutes will not count as part of the 3.5 hours that they need to complete their 50 overs in. If there are decisions that are reviewed and sent up to the TV umpire, the time that it takes to make those decisions is not included in the 3.5 hours that the team has 50 overs to bowl. I hope that answers your question, Janine.
Yeah, because I watched the game, the one game where New Zealand played South Africa and Paul. That was a long time ago. And I know AB de Villiers was also fined because they were behind with the overs. But that was quite a few years ago. So yeah, I was just wondering about that. So what you do basically is you take the 3.5 hours per side and you basically divide it by the 50 overs. And then you get the time more or less per over.
Yes, 3.5 hours is 210 minutes, and then they get 2 drinks breaks, 5 minutes each, so that's 10 minutes. So you're left with 200 minutes of playing time. 200 divided by 50 overs is exactly 4 minutes an over. That is generally the over rate that they are meant to keep in 50 over cricket.
Okay. All right, cool. Yeah. Thank you. All right.
You're welcome.
All right.
Next hand up, Diraviam, please unmute your microphone. Sorry, it's Central. Please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours.
Good evening to all. My question is actually I have 2 questions. Before that, I have to ask one question from the Rogan's question to Langton. If the ball is splitted into 2 pieces, whether the ball is counted or not.
The ball should be one piece. It's meant to be a complete ball, which weighs 156 grams maximum. If it's not, I personally would not regard it as the ball. If a bat, on the other hand, is broken, any part of that bat, if it goes to hit the stumps, the batter is out because it's considered to be part of the bat. Is out, hit wicket. But in the laws, because you guys talk about laws, if a helmet falls onto the stumps, it's regarded as protective equipment, isn't it? So the batter wouldn't be out if the ball hits the helmet and goes onto the stumps. In playing conditions, ICC, we would regard that as out because that's different.
Okay, my thing is like if the ball is after hitting it has been divided into two pieces. As Rogan said, one piece is in keeper's hand, one piece is in other's hand. So that time that ball is counted or not? One for over.
Good question. Would that ball count as an over, or do we have to rebound?
Because you told Langton that I will give you personally that is a dead ball. That is fine. But whether the ball is counted one for over or it is not counted.
Right. If you then look at law 20, is it law 20? I think it's law 20, dead ball. It tells you when the ball counts in the over and when it doesn't. In my personal view, and Abdullah, you're the expert on laws, and I would want to know from you as well. In my personal opinion, it depends on when the ball split. Did it split before it was hit or after it was hit? Because with the dead ball law, unless it's a field infringement, anything that happens before the ball gets to the batter, the ball doesn't count. And anything that happens after the ball counts. So
that's why I am asking means Langton, if it is the last over, last ball, they need 6 runs to win. Unfortunately, they hit, and it has happened to the two pieces. So now
what I would personally do is not count it in the over, because it's not the fielding side's fault that the ball split, and it's not the batting side's fault that this ball split. But the laws don't talk about this particular scenario. They talk about the ball not counting in the over or counting in the over, because this was not a field infringement. I'm not going to disadvantage the batting and the fielding team from scoring or taking a wicket. So I would allow them to re-ball the ball. I think the key there would be how you manage the situation and talking to players.
Yes, that is what my personal feeling also, the same thing only, because if it is the last ball, then we should not count the ball one for the over.
Thanks for the question.
That would still be my view, even if it was the first ball of the game. I would not count it in the over.
Okay, because this is actually not my question. Because of the Rogan question, I want to ask this one. So my first question is actually, if the batsman is hit the ball to the 6, the fielder in the 4 line, he jumped the ball to catch the 6 balls to catch the ball. So he has handed the ball, but unfortunately he want to inside the boundary line. So he passed the ball in the air and he went inside the boundary line. The ball is also inside the boundary line, and he jumped and he's catching and he's running back to from the air itself. He's coming back to the inside the boundary line, whether it is out or not out. I have seen in this video in some of the county matches or something. I don't know where I have seen, but they have given us a out. This one is. I want to know how come it is possible to give out.
So Senthil, we are coming to boundary catches, and we've got a fair few examples that we will play on video. These type of examples are very difficult for us to answer without seeing the actual video. So I would encourage you to go and find that video, and then if you are not satisfied with the videos that we play during the boundary catches law, then we will happily play your video and we will talk you through it. Is that okay?
Okay, Tom, thank you. Okay, that one more question is for me is when I was having your match, so we need to have the match at playing from the both ends, but one of the captain is opposing. He will not play with both the ends. He told that we will play with only one ends because the other end it is not good to play. But the other captain is saying that it is okay to play. If those kind of things is there means because of due we cannot able to play like that. That one captain is saying, but the other captain is saying okay we can play both the ends. We can satisfied. Whether that time how we can handle these kind of things.
Are we allowed to play on only one end? Abdullah, you want to take that one for us?
To start off, no, you're not allowed to just play at one end. Even if both umpires agree, that's not how a cricket game is played. If the conditions are not fit for play to take place from both ends, even if both captains agree, you cannot uh, start a game and decide we're just going to bowl from, let's say, the Weinberg in, and because the other side is wet and slippery, we're not bowling from the other side. You need to wait for conditions to improve. You'll do regular inspections. If conditions improve and the pitch and field is fit to bowl from both ends, then you'll start the game. But you will not start a game by just bowling from one end. Even if both captains agree, you would say, no, captains, we will wait for conditions to improve and we will only play if we can from both ends. Over, Tom.
Okay, thank you, Abdullah. Thank you.
Thanks, Dula. Next hand up, a very good friend of mine, Reginald Bodo Berry. Please unmute your microphone. How is East London this evening? How are you, mate?
Good evening, Tom. Good evening, Abdullah. Good evening, Langton, and good evening, fellow colleagues. East London is okay, Tom. I've just come down with a bit of flu, so that's why I came late on the call. But at least I'm part of the team.
Awesome.
And then I would just like to congratulate yourself and Abdullah and Langton for sharing with us. Never too old to learn something new. So thanks, guys. Awesome show, and good luck for the future for you guys.
Thanks, Bodo. I hope you're still umpiring there in East London, and all the best to border cricket umpires for the season coming.
Yeah, thanks, Reggie. Thanks for the kind words. Bye. Bye, Bodo.
Thanks, Dula.
I see Mohammed is at the top of the list again. I'm just going to give others a chance first, Mohammed, and then we'll get to you afterwards. Pratish, please unmute your microphone and the floor is yours.
Sure. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Abdullah. Thanks, Langton. And other, I see Mazizi Marlon is also there in the call. In regards to IPL scenario, I just wanted to, it's not a question, it's about hearing your opinion. Yes, the law tells regarding the extenuating times, all those stuff, sorry, not extenuating times, that the time which the fielder needs to be on the field, off the field, all those kind of stuff. In that particular scenario, Mahesh Diksana was on the field for 5 minutes already, and he owes us 4 minutes. Which is what the question was. Yes, I agree with Langton. As per the law, that we need, the umpires should have gone to their positions and they should have exercised or implied the time wasting rule. Yes, I agree with all those things. In terms of extenuating time for over rates, yes, those 4 minutes which was discussed, which was wasted by, sorry, let me not make a comment like wasted by MS Dhoni, but there was some intent to do that. And that extenuating time will be added to the over rates. Yes, that also is a big question. This is not there in the law, I'm just asking it as an opinion. If I say to the captain that now you're talking to me and you're wasting time, those 4 minutes, those 4 minutes won't count for you, count for your player. Once we get to our positions, we will still wait for 4 minutes for your bowler to bowl. Does it make sense? According to law, it's not allowed because he was there on the field already for 5 minutes and there's 4 minutes left. So if I tell him that the discussion which we are having, if you think that this 4 minutes is going to allow your bowler to come and bowl immediately, that's not going to happen. If I say that, will it make sense? Or, I mean, until the laws get changed, it won't make any sense. But it's my opinion. Will it add any value? That's my first question.
Interesting point, Pratish. Let's talk through it. Langton, is there any sort of validity there? Should it not have counted as penalty time served while they were arguing?
That is a very interesting question. The unfortunate thing is, and you've already said that until the laws change or until the playing conditions change, because Patirana was on the field and there wasn't a stoppage due to ground weather, light or whatever it was, or due to a break in play, the 4 minutes would have to count for him because he was on the field. And Dhoni is one of those guys that understands the laws and he will find loopholes in the laws to suit himself, which a lot of captains will do. What I think would be a good thing to do is don't engage players past a certain point. I don't think there's need for you to be arguing with the captain for 4 minutes. So in our fieldcraft, we should know when to back away from an argument with a player. Don't engage them past a certain point. That's what I would say with regards to fieldcraft. If, say, well, not just with this particular example, if, say, players are unhappy with some decision that you made, try not to engage them for too long. What I would encourage umpires to do is have short conversations and keep it factual and leave it at that. Because once you start being drawn into arguments, the game will stop for everything, which we shouldn't do. Remember, we spoke about being managers in the first lecture for this course. We spoke about managing the game and not being too officious. So manage the game, do what the game expects you to do, which is make sure that you're playing when you should be playing. Those 4 minutes would not have been wasted if the umpires had considered what the game expects. Does that help in any way, Pratish?
Sure. Yeah, very sure. Thanks. That's why I said I started off with, I agree with you completely as per the laws.
Yeah.
It was just to hear your opinion. Sorry, I do have another question, but as Tom said that
Sure.
we'll allow everyone to ask a question, and that's around Rohan's point, but that's not with the splitting of the ball. It's something else. I will wait for that to be discussed at the end. Thank you. I'll give others the opportunity.
Thanks, Pratish. Next hand up is Biswajit. Biswajit, please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours.
Hello, sir.
Yes,
I put my question in chat box. Kindly check.
Okay. A fielder is absent from the field from 10:30 a.m. An interruption occurs at 10:50 a.m. Match resumes at 11:20 a.m. The absent fielder returns to the field at 11:25. Abdullah, we've just been through some penalty time questions. You took us through a memorandum last night. Please, can you give Biswajit a penalty time masterclass here for us?
Yes, thanks for your question, Biswajit. So let's take a step back and paint the picture in terms of timings. And let's assume this is a test match. So in a test match, the playing condition states they have 3 2-hour sessions with a drinks break midway through the session. So play starts at 10 o'clock and lunch will be at 12 o'clock. with a drinks break at 11 o'clock. From 11 till 11:04 will be our drinks break. So player X leaves the field at 10:30, and then it starts raining at 10:50. And then everyone's off the field, and play only resumes at 11:20. So from 10:50 till 11:20, it rains for 30 minutes. The absent fielder only returns at 11:25. So now for a injured player to offset or to subtract any to subtract an unscheduled break from any penalty time that he or she may owe, there's two questions that you need to ask yourself, and there's certain conditions attached to the two scenarios. The first question is the injured player on the field of play when it started to rain? And the second one is the injured fielder not on the field of play when it started to rain? So in this scenario, the injured player is not on the field when it started to rain. So if an injured player is not on the field when it started to rain, two conditions needs to be in place for that injured player to offset any unscheduled break like the rain interruption against any penalty time that he or she may owe. So the first condition is that player needs to personally inform you during the unscheduled break that he or she is fit again. And from that moment that the injured player personally inform you, then you can start offsetting or subtracting the unscheduled break from any penalty time that the player may owe. That's the first condition. The second condition is the player needs to return with his or her side at the resumption of play. So so if let's first count the penalty time, how much penalty time this player owes. Off at 10:30. At 10:50 it starts to rain. So when it started to rain, player owes 20 minutes penalty time. Play resumes at 11:20. Because player was not on the field of play when it started to rain, player did not personally inform you that he or she was fit again, you cannot offset the rain interruption against the penalty time that he or she may owe. So when play resumed at 11:20, player X owes 20 minutes of penalty time. But player X did not return with the side at 11:20. He or she only returned at 11:25. So that's another 5 minutes from 11:20 till 11:25. So now you need to add that 5 minutes to the penalty time that the injured player already has. So 20 plus 5 is 25 minutes that the injured player owes at 11:25. So the injured player can only bowl at 11:50 again. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Dula. Biswajit, happy with that?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. I have a question. How I may improve this kind of questions during exam, and any reference book or any other sources that I practice daily wise and grow my practice solve this kind of questions. How can I
Biswajit,
improve this type of questions? Solve this type of questions.
Biswajit, we do handle penalty time scenarios in level 2 and level 3. There are recordings of revision lectures that you can watch on our YouTube channel. So the revision lectures for level 1, 2, and 3 go through specific slides that are examined in the question paper that you are going to be writing. In level 1, I think there is one small penalty time question, not very difficult. If you want to challenge yourself, go to our level 2 lecture 7. Watch that. There are 2 or 3 questions on penalty time. And if you're feeling really excited to be challenged by penalty time questions, go to our level 3, lecture 7. Lecture 6 is our last lecture for level 2 and level 3. So go and view those videos. You will get some questions on penalty time that you can practice with. And of course, you can also make up your own penalty time scenarios. A player can go off the field at any time and he can come back at any time. So it's easy for you to make up a penalty time scenario. And then what you can do is you can email me your question and your answer, and I will let you know if you have got the penalty time calculation correct or not. I hope that helps, Biswajit.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Awesome. Next hand up is Afak Alam. And Afak, I see you've been having problems viewing our presentation and videos here this evening. You've been logging off and logging back on and still no luck. What I do suggest is maybe trying a different device. I don't think anybody else had that problem, so it could just be related to your device. Afak, the floor is yours.
Hi, Tom. Hi, Abdullah. Hi, Langton. And hi, everyone, my fellows. Yeah, I had problems. Might be I'm using my mobile, so that is the reason. So when I log out and then log in, so it will come. Then again, like 5-10 minutes after, it's not showing. So thanks for having me. My question, sir, the similar two scenarios. If the batsman hit the ball and the ball is going to the third man boundary line, okay, so the batsman make 2 runs, and after throwing the fielder, the ball hit the helmet. So what will be the runs count with the penalty? And the other scenario, the ball and the batsman and the keeper both misses the ball, and ball hit the helmet. So the ball is dead and the plenty runs is count. So I need the answer of this question. Thank you.
Abdullah, we are going to deal with this in a later law, but do you want to give Afak a quick heads up on the ball hitting a helmet that has been put on the ground by the fielding side, discarded by the fielding side?
So Afak, ball hitting helmet that was placed behind the wicketkeeper by the fielding side. So as soon as the ball, while still in play, hits the helmet behind the keeper, as soon as the ball just touches the helmet, whether it brushes the helmet, it just needs to touch the helmet, the ball immediately becomes dead when the ball hits the helmet. So 5 penalty runs will be given to the batting side. Additionally, runs completed by the batters shall also be awarded to the batting side, including the run in progress if the batters crossed at the instant when the ball hit the helmet. So that's a judgment call that you need to make. You can consult your colleague whether they crossed at the instant when the ball hit the helmet. So if they did, that run to count. If they did not, the run will then not count. So to summarize, as soon as the ball hits the helmet, the ball becomes immediately dead. 5 penalty runs will be awarded to the batting side. You will also award the completed runs that the batters did, including the run in progress if the batters crossed at the instant of the fieldings when the ball hit the helmet. So I think in your scenario, you said the batters completed 2 runs, they're busy with the third. So depending on whether they crossed or not when the ball hit the helmet, so if they did cross, that run will count. So it will be 5 penalty runs, 2 for the completed runs and 1 for the run that they're busy with. But because they cross, that run will also count, and it will be 8 runs in total. Did I answer the question, Tom?
Thank you so much, Abdullah. But the second scenario, let me ask one thing. If the both the batsman and the keeper is missing the ball, and it is hit the helmet, so balls become dead. So the ball is count or the ball is not count.
Yes, the ball does count as 1 for the over, and in terms of runs, only the 5 penalty runs will now be awarded to the batting side. Only 5 penalty runs because they didn't complete any runs. They didn't cross in the first run. So only the 5 penalty runs will go towards the batting side. And yes, the ball counts as 1 for the over.
Thank you so much, Abdullah. Thank you so much, Tom.
You're welcome. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Afaq. Thanks, Abdullah. Just to add a little bit of field craft to whenever the ball hits a discarded helmet, even though the ball becomes automatically dead, it is good umpiring practice for either umpire to call and signal dead ball. Why? Because not everybody on the field is going to see that the ball has hit the helmet. Okay, so please do call and signal dead ball as soon as the ball hits a discarded helmet on the ground belonging to the fielding side.
Thank you so much, Tom. Thank you for adding the valuable words. Thank you.
You're welcome. Right. The last hand up was also the first hand up. Mohammed, you are welcome to unmute your microphone. The floor is yours.
I wrote the question and it's in the chat. Sorry, the chat box as well. If you want me to add something more, that'll be fine.
Perfect. So I'm going to read it from the chat box. The umpire has suspended a bowler on the 4th delivery of an over. Can another bowler complete the over even though the suspension happens at 12 o'clock, which is lunchtime, Abdullah? I'm hungry. I want to call lunch and go eat. What happens next?
So, Mohammed, we get guided by the law what we do next. So, when it comes to reaching an over at our lunchtime, there are only 3 instances when we can go for lunch mid-over. Firstly, if a batter gets dismissed with less than 3 minutes to go to lunch. Secondly, if a batter retires within 3 minutes or less to go for lunch, or thirdly, if there's occasion for the players where they need to leave the field with less than 3 minutes to go for lunch. So those are the 3 instances that you mid-over you take an early lunch. In this case, bowler was suspended, so there are still 2 balls to go. So you need to ask the captain to bring on another bowler to complete the over. So this bowler should not have bowled the previous over, and the bowler will then complete the 2 deliveries, and then we will take lunchtime after the 2 balls was delivered.
Tom, Abdullah, that's not the question. What my question specifically said at that time, when the guy gets suspended, or the captain turn around and deliberate who to bowl. At that time, my question is 12 o'clock. After the 4th delivery, what the umpire should do next? Like what you just said, law is telling us the 3 instances, which I know, but this is a situation too, but the long time is up. Then we lost 2 minutes, that it be 6 minutes in the over, so to speak. So that is the question specifically, what the umpire should do next. Let the bowler continue, because it could be 12 or 4, 12 or 5 with the two delivery. You never know what could happen.
Okay, I see Langton's hand is raised. Langton, over to you.
Abdullah answered this earlier when he said the over is not completed. So the over before lunch, you always complete it unless there's occasion to leave the field or someone retires. So even if there's this that's happening, that this bowler has been suspended, the over is not completed. You're not looking at who's bowling the over. You're looking at, is the over completed? Because it hasn't been completed, we carry on until the over is completed. So those two balls, whoever's bowling them will have to complete the over, because no one has been dismissed, and there's been no retirement of a batsman or anything like that. So the over has to be completed.
Or declaration. But Mr. Lanton, the time is up after the full delivery, which is 12 o'clock, which is the legitimate agreed time on both captains for lunch. That is the debate.
That is correct. But because you don't go off for lunch at 12 o'clock, it is a guideline that lunch is at 12 o'clock. You finish the over in progress. At the call of over, then you go for lunch. Or at the dismissal of a batsman, if there's 3 minutes to go, within 3 minutes to lunch, then you go for lunch. Other than that, you carry on and you finish that over.
So you were saying the
So even if
suspension is nothing.
Yes, so you can have a bowler suspended ball number 1 of the over, and a bowler suspended ball number 3 of the over, and another bowler suspended ball number 5 of the over. Because the over is not complete, you finish the over. Even if that over is going to be 10 minutes long, you finish the over, because that's what the law says.
Okay, but then again, you answer the question yourself. You lost 10 minutes of playing time.
That is okay. You can have lunch at whatever time you have it, and the break would be 40 minutes.
How are you going to make back
And
the 10
a
minutes,
multi-innings.
How are you going to make back the 10
You
minutes?
can remember the scenario we spoke about with Dhoni. That over was very long because, well, that conversation was very long. It lasted for 4.5, 5 minutes, which meant that the over that followed is calculated from when the last over started, which was 5 minutes before that. So when you look at how long the over was, it would have been maybe 9 minutes, but it wasn't 9 minutes long. Stuff that happened in that over or at the start of that over is counted in that over. Does that make sense? So an over can be as long as...
Thank you. I'm not going to debate no longer. Thank you very much.
And an over can be as long as it is.
Say that again. Repeat.
I'm saying an over can be as long as it is, because the guide is 4 minutes, but an over can be 8 minutes. It can be 9 minutes. It doesn't have to be 4 minutes. It's a guideline. So if the over is 10 minutes long, it's still part of the game. They will then be penalized at the end of the game if they need to be penalized.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mohammed. Next hand up, Pratish. Please unmute your microphone.
Sorry, Tom. Are we allowed to discuss Rogan's question here? Or Rowan's scenario?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, sure. We discussed about bat not held in the hand, and there was a white ball scenario, and I also want to add one more scenario to it. Let's talk about white ball scenario where the bat was not in the hand, but the ball was down leg, and when the bat was in the air, it touches the bat. Now we said that we're not going to call it as a wide. And what if that, without ball being grounded, ball touched the bat and the keeper caught it?
Yeah, we said that if the bat is not held by the batter, then it is considered as part of the batter's person, but is not considered as a bat, so will not be out caught.
Okay. Yeah, I heard that specific thing. I actually missed that point. Maybe my headphones was not on. The other scenario which I want to add to this was the ball was bowled outside the off stump and the ball was inside the guideline, like wide guideline, and the bat was released from the hand. It was not held in the hand, but it got contact with the ball and the ball went to the boundary. Am I correct in saying will it be considered as bias?
I would actually go leg buys. Langton,
Because we said persons, the bat forms as a person. Okay.
Yeah. Langton, what do you think if the ball makes contact with the bat, but the bat is not held by the batter and goes to the boundary?
That's my interpretation as well. But I have asked the law gurus at the ICC, and they have said to avoid confusion, you want to be calling this ball a dead ball, so you don't have anything that's confusing anyone.
Okay.
That's what the umpire coaches have said. Because I asked them this question, Manasa.
Okay.
So will the ball be rebowled, Langton?
I believe so. So I will know what they say when they speak to Fraser Stewart from the MCC, because they also sent it to the people that would then answer us from the MCC side. But the ICC's standpoint at this point is call it dead ball.
Yeah, because so if I'm thinking about it, my interpretation would be, if you cannot be caught off the ball, then you cannot score runs off the ball.
Off the ball, yes.
Yeah.
That would just logically tell me you cannot caught, you cannot score any runs. Bat needs to be in your hand. So that runs, even if it goes to the boundary, that boundary fall will not count.
Yes, and that ball will not count as well.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks for consulting the umpire coaches, Langton, just to clear this up for us. Thanks.
Thanks so much, gents. Much appreciated.
Awesome. Hand up by Pankaj for the super to bowl the super over. Please unmute your microphone.
Yeah.
The floor is yours, Pankaj.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks to all of you for giving us opportunity like this. So in continuation with the last question, why we should not call, or why we should not consider the ball, it's a fair ball in that particular scenario. So like when the ball hit the bat, which is not held in the hand, and ball went to the boundary, right? So the ball is, we should still consider the ball as a legal ball in that delivery, right?
Pankaj, what Langton will do is he will get the final answer for us from the ICC, who are going to refer it to the MCC, Marylebone Cricket Club, who are the custodians of the law. So we will have a definitive answer for you at our, hopefully tomorrow night at our next lecture. If not, then next week, Tuesday. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Cool. Aways Qureshi, I saw that your hand was up. It's now not up anymore.
Thanks, Tom. It was up, but my question was answered by the previous person, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. Tell me, are you related to Mohammed Qureshi, who is in Australia by any chance?
I hope I was, but that's not the case, though.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Tom.
Yes, Mohammed, go ahead.
Excuse me. When is the next class? This Thursday?
When is what, sorry?
The next class is the 17th?
No, as per the poster, the next class is tomorrow. Why? Because Abdullah and I are going for our pre-season panel conference with Cricket South Africa umpires on Thursday. So we will not be presenting a lecture on Thursday. We'll be presenting the second lecture of this week tomorrow, same time, same place, different link, which I will send out. Which I will send out tonight after this lecture. Okay.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm looking forward to the link.
You'll be the first one to get it, Mohammed.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I'm just going through the chat box to see if there are any questions that we have missed. I don't. Yes, I see Biswajit asked a question. If miscounting of a ball by an umpire and a bowler bowls 7 balls instead of 6, how as an umpire do we handle this situation, Abdullah? Does that seventh ball count? Runs scored off that seventh ball, will they be allowed to stand?
Let me start off by saying that's why it's so important to get your counting on the field, to make sure that you get your counting spot on the field. In all formats of the game, but especially in limited over cricket, whether it's 50 overs or T20, one extra ball or one ball less can have an impact on the game. So make sure that before you go onto the field, you confirm signals with your colleagues, whether you're going to show 3 balls left in the over, 2 balls left, 1 ball left. Make sure you get your counting spot on. But there are occasions, we are human, that yes, we do miscount. So if we do miscount, and in this scenario where we do allow a 7th ball in the over, so that 7th ball that we allowed, anything that happened off that 7 ball will count. Any run scored of that 7 ball will count. If the batter hits a 4 off that 7th ball, it will count. If a bowler takes a wicket off the 7th ball, that will also count. So after now allowing the 7th ball, and let's say the batter hit a 4, you then realize that you've actually allowed 7 balls. The law allows you, after realizing that you've miscounted, the law allows you to call over. And you can then call over, and that 7th ball that shouldn't have been, the runs allowed, wicket, if a wicket was taken, that would also be allowed.
Awesome.
Over, Tom.
Thanks very much, Dilla. Senthil has got his hand up again. You may unmute your microphone. The floor is yours.
Only one small suggestion only I need. Actually, if the batter has hit the ball and it has been a slight edge and the keeper has caught the ball. But this is just, I want the suggestion only. But the main umpire didn't hear the sound, but he is giving not out. But as a leg umpire, you know it is hit by the bat, by the ball clearly, and you heard the sound also. So this time, whether you will, but the main bowler and umpire didn't ask anything to the striker and umpire. But he told it is not out. So that time, what we need to say, we need to stay calm, and we didn't tell anything. Or after the match only, we need to discuss, or what is the best. But you know very clearly it has been, there is a thick edge, and you heard the sound.
Langton,
which is the good practice. Which is the good practice.
Yeah. Can you take us through some
because
teamwork
the spirit of the game, the player is telling that I didn't hit. It is not the edge. Like that, he will giving the body language. But the main umpire is saying bowler and umpire saying is not out. But bowler and even leg umpire and the keeper, everybody knows it is clearly the out. This is very critical situation. What we need to do, which is good practice.
Right. In terms of what the good practice would be, I would suggest that when in doubt, find out from your colleague what they know. But in contradiction to that, I will say to you, when I am umpiring, if it's not a leg by, if it's not anything like that, if there's a decision on a ball, I tell everyone that I umpire with, fortunately, I'm umpiring games where there's DRS, I say to them, I am not going to give you anything. Reason being, if you're going to get it wrong, I don't want to be the reason why you're getting it wrong. So I personally do not look at square leg when I'm making a decision. Reason being, I want to be in ownership of my decision. When I get it wrong or right, I want my processes to be, so where did I go wrong? Not what did square leg say to me, which could have been wrong. So I'm not casting blame on someone else. If you can help your colleague, sure, help them out as much as you can, because that's what we're told to do. That is part of teamwork. But as you get higher, you realize that some of these things that we're taught probably don't apply as much, because if they're not in a good position, which is, well, it's clearly you're probably not in a good position to see whether there's bat or not. You might hear sound. But if you're umpiring in, say, India, you're in Mohali, you're at Eden Gardens or one of those grounds, you are not going to hear edge as well. So I would let the guy whose bowlers in umpire make the decisions for themselves, because the correct decision percentage will affect them and not me. What I will help with is bouncers and wides over the head. That I will help with. But the rest, I probably won't get involved, because I don't want them to get stuff wrong because of me. And
okay,
the reverse as well. When I'm on umpire, I don't want to get anything wrong because I looked at my partner at square leg. There are people that I trust and go, if they tell me this is that, I might go with them. But lately, so in the last, say, 2 years, it's my decision. I own it 100%. If I'm wrong, I'd rather be wrong on my own as bowlers in umpire, which is probably contrary to what you're going to be told as you umpire early on. But I want you to get to a point where you own your own decisions and you're confident enough to get a decision wrong, because you will get decisions wrong. Don't worry about that. You will get decisions wrong. But get them wrong, owning them. Get them wrong, knowing that you gave yourself the best chance and you're not going to blame someone else for a wrong decision. So if you're at square leg, you hear an age, that's okay. That's life. They got the decision wrong. They will get decisions wrong. We will get decisions wrong.
okay. So also after the match, if he asks, one more thing is, I want to add the Langton. After the match, if he asks, we can give our suggestion. I heard the sound. If he asks, we can give, or we can say that time, or what is your opinion?
Yes, honesty is part of why we umpire, I think. If we're not going to be honest with our colleagues, they're not going to grow. And if I'm honest with them and I'm honest with myself, I will tell them, I thought you got that wrong, or the height looked bad on that LBW decision. It's an opinion. They can take it or leave it.
Okay.
So it's
So
it's up
even
to
if
them.
they ask, or if they didn't ask, we can tell. I heard the sound like that, we can say. Or if they
I
ask, only
normally,
we need to say.
so that depends on who you're umpiring with. If I'm umpiring with Tom and he wants to know immediately what I thought, I will tell him on field if he wants to know
Okay.
at the
Okay.
next break or something. If he doesn't want to know, I will not say anything. So it depends on who you're umpiring with.
Okay, it depends upon the companion, how much he is
Yes.
close to you and how much he will take care of your decisions or your.
Yes.
It depends upon these
Your
two
input.
persons only. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Langton. Actually, this helped me really a lot, and you have given a good experience. Because this is sometimes I was thinking a lot whether we can tell or not tell, like that it will be there. Thanks for the brief
So
lecture.
why I say that as well is because think about it. At square leg, you're basing on sound, and that sound could be anything. So I'm not going to base my decision just on what someone heard. I'd rather base it on what I've seen and heard as well. So I'm in a position to get more information into it as bowlers in umpire than someone who's basing on sound at square leg alone.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Very good point to end off that discussion. Thanks for the question, Senthil, and the thorough answer, Langton. Aways, you've got your hand up. The floor is yours.
I do this time. Tom, I'm not sure if it's okay for me to just share a comment regarding this. So, Langton, I mean, really appreciate your feedback there. I went through a very similar incident in my previous game at elite level, where as a leg umpire, I heard a sound. The usual as my main umpire, I had a signal with him tapping my hand that I heard something. Obviously, after the game, I discussed with him. And to your point, Langton, as a leg umpire, I did hear a sound, but the main umpire was in a better position because the sound I heard was actually the sound of a chain and the steel of the grill of the helmet. But to your point, the main umpire was the best judge because he saw the difference. There was no ball and back close. So to your point, Langton, I mean, the leg umpire, I could hear sound, and as we always said, umpires, every sound is not a bad sound. So to your point, it was a good experience for me as a leg umpire. You could hear a lot of things, but I'm in no position to sort of share my feedback. And secondly, what I heard from a very good umpire recently, Arnold, in here in Canada, he mentioned to me something. He said, "Race, as a main umpire, once a main umpire starts talking to leg umpire for decisions, you lose respect as an umpire because now the opposition team can always ask you to consult the leg umpire." So I really agree with your second point as well. As a main umpire, you rather own your own decision versus show weakness, because now the team can always ask you to go in and consult for every decision with the leg umpire. I'm sorry I went on and on, but I just want to make sure I share my feedback as well. Thank you.
No worries, always.
And
It's very good feedback. Go ahead.
That is
Langton.
true. And I agree with you a lot. I really agree with you. And I'll give an example of a guy that I know who's usually given out because of the chain that he wears. And it's a guy called Shimron Edmeyer, because he wears a necklace that makes a sound when it hits against the helmet. And it usually happens at the right time. And umpires give him out because of that. And when he reviews, it's usually not out because it's the chain and not bat on ball. So that's what I've learned in my limited time umpiring international cricket. What I'm going to say again, well, I guess this is me closing off. This is probably my last comment. I am again learning a lot from you guys, because with the bad question, it's something that has never happened to me, probably never will, but it's made me think about something, and I've learned something. And it should show you that because someone's umpiring international cricket, someone's a test umpire, whatever they are, they know everything. No, they don't. I'm learning probably more than you guys are learning, and I'm going to make it a point to always attend these courses, sessions, lectures, because I am learning so much. And thank you very much, Abdullah and Tom, and thank you very much everyone who's on the call for challenging me and making me learn as much as I'm learning. Thank you very much.
Such a humble person at your level, Langton. Rare to find. And I think it's something that all the other candidates can take to heart, is that you can and will always learn at whatever level you are at. So please, guys, don't think that once you've got your Cricket South Africa level 3 certificate with us, that's the end of your learning for the rest of your umpiring career. No, definitely not. Keep learning, keep asking questions. We would prefer if those scenarios are on video. They are easier to answer if we see the scenario rather than having to picture it ourselves. But yes, keep them coming and we will keep answering to the best of our ability. If we don't know, we will consult with the gurus at the International Cricket Council, or even Marylebone Cricket Club, the custodians of the laws. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank Langton for his time and effort, as well as Abdullah for his input, quality law knowledge all day, every day, and for all of you for your participation and your interaction. Once again, remember that we will meet up again tomorrow because Thursday there is no lecture. So I will send out the meeting invites in the next half an hour for tomorrow's lecture. And I will send out the recording of this lecture in about an hour and a half's time as it finishes downloading on Teams and uploading on YouTube. Have a good evening further. Keep well. Thank you and good night.
Good night, everyone. Bye.